Although in his 70s himself by then, he was still working. Nominated for an Oscar for the Towering Inferno film, appearing with Gene Kelly in That's Entertainment Too, and dropping in on Michael Parkinson, who had Astaire at the top of his wish list for years.
I think I must establish, first of all, Fred, because I do happen to know, you don't like being interviewed, do you?
Well, with you, I love it. You know, I mean, I'm sure I will. I'm not kidding.
But you once had a reputation in America, didn't you? You were once nominated, I think, by the gossip columnists, one of the 10 least cooperative stars in Hollywood.
Yes, I was, and several people were very envious of me for that. I remember Ronald Colman was furious because he wanted to be first. And, of course, that goes way, way back. But it was all in fun anyway, because there was nothing, you know, all those things you read in the paper, and they sound a little rough, but they're not.
No.
They're not rough.
I was interested also in reading your biography to find out that, in fact, your sister, Adele, had a nickname for you, which was Moaning Minnie.
Well, I know that, but she wasn't the only one. It was some friends of mine, some fellow friends of mine, called me because I was worrying about things all the time. And whenever there's a job to do in showbiz, you worry about it. And they used to kid me about it. So I got used to that. That was so long ago, I haven't heard that one for a long time.
How long, in fact, have you been in show business?
Well, you mean how long I actually have? Well, I'll tell you. See, I started at the age of 4.5, appearing professionally, and if you add that up to now, I have been performing professionally for 71 years.
70?
Thank you. I didn't say it for that purpose. Thank you so much. It broke me up when I thought about it. Oh my gosh, this can't be.
Yeah.
But it is actually so, because I was born in 1899, and then at 4.5, I went to New York, and it was. No, I appeared at about 4.5. But I went to New York when I was about 4, and then there was some kind of a professional appearance that occurred around that time, so I added it all up, and that's what it is. So,
well, I interviewed Bing Crosby recently, and he thought he was a veteran, and he'd only been 50 years.
Oh, such a child, for heaven's sake. Ridiculous.
In fact, I mean, you were quite old, weren't you, by professional standards, when you went to the movies? You were, what, 34, weren't you, or something like that?
Well, yeah, it was in 1933, and that made me 34.
Yeah. One thinks of, you can think of half a dozen so more, perhaps, outstanding solo routines that you've done in movies, doing all kinds of different things with different props and things. Well, what about one of my favorite sequences of yours from a film called Carefree, which is the one where you hit the golf balls? I mean, it was an astonishing bit of precision. Before we talk about that, before we explain it, let's have a look. We've got a clip here. As I say, it's from a film called Carefree, and it really is an extraordinary piece of, well, imagination and execution. It's coming up now.
Thank you.
That was incredible.
I really loved doing that number. Had a lot of practice. One of the things I remember particularly, in order to keep the balls in the view of the camera, we had a tree the location we did this was a tree in a big tree background, so you could see this little white ball. Because some people think it was done tricky, and it wasn't. But I was hitting them, and they were going straight, but they were going up a little too quick, and out of the camera lens thing. So the camera, I said, "Hey, can't you keep those a little lower, please?" And I said, "Look, I got enough troubles with you hitting me." So anyway, I flattened my swing, and I kept them down, and it worked anyway. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm glad you liked it. Thanks very much.
Oh, super, yeah. A lot of these numbers that you danced for these people who wrote them, you were dressed up in what became your sort of trademark, the top hat, the white tie and tails. 2 questions. How much is that really you?
Well, I don't like wearing a full dress suit. I hate it. Well, I had so much of it that people thought that I was born in it. I began to too. But it was necessary for the thing we were doing at that point, and I actually haven't worn it anywhere in a film for quite a long time.
No.
And I had to wear it to a couple of shindigs I went to recently, but I just don't like it. It's stiff and, you know.
It made you dance very well. Let's have a go.
Well, I worked for that.
Well, we've got a clip here. Let's have a look at it. Probably it was the last time that you appeared on screen in that rig, and that was in Blue Skies.
Well, that isn't full dress suit. The one you're talking about. It's a tail.
Let's have a look. You enjoy watching that?
Well, it interests me to see it again. I haven't seen it lately, and I mean, I know what's there because I've always remembered it was very complicated to get it, all that stuff, the screens, the separate screens. I did one thing alone, and then I had to change the set so that the one line would go this way, and that was another shot, and then the other line would go that way. In other words, there's a multiple amount of
you on the screen.
Yeah, of split screens put
Yeah.
all together. It's a very complicated process. It wasn't all ready to look finished until about 3 months after it was made, and I was very anxious to know how they could ever get time together so well. The wonderful department of special effects could get that all synced properly. That's what I worried about mostly.
You knock hell out of your canes, don't you?
Oh, I've broken a lot of them. Sometimes on purpose I got mad or something because I wasn't getting something I was trying to get, and then I was like, you know.
I'll tell you another slight technical thing that always puzzled me whenever I see that sequence, and that's how do you get that cane off the floor to shoot into your hand? Is that trick photography?
Well, it's not trick photography. It's a mechanical thing. There was a little hole in the ground on the stage. It had a little thing that shot up, and when the cane was there, it went like that and came up on rhythm. The fellow had to out there had to press the button just right. We had to have a musician to do it because the timing had to be just a fraction ahead of that beat. Because if you'd hit it on the beat, it would have been a little late and thrown things out. So he had to go and start landing up in my hand. You see,
Extraordinary.
Things like that take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And you pray all the time that they're going to work.
That was supposed to be a retirement movie, that wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
announced at the time that after that you'd finished. Why was that? Why at that time were you thinking of retiring?
Well, I think everybody gets that feeling. They come to. I said, well, look, I've done about all I can do now. And I think I want to quit. And I actually did decide to retire then. And well, then something happened. I think it was. You know, this back a number of years. I can't tell you exactly, but I think it was. So I know Gene Kelly was doing a movie called Easter Parade. And he fell out of it because he'd hurt his leg, and then they got after me and said, would I come over and take it over and start over again and do it with me? And then he called me, and it looked like a good show, and so I did it. That's all. So I was back in business again, and so then I stayed again for a while, and then I had ideas again and quit again. I think a lot of people do that. I know a number of people that say, oh, I can't do anymore. They can't think of anymore. You think you can't, and then maybe you can't. I don't know. But
Your mother wanted you to retire, in fact, when you were 35, didn't
oh,
she?
my mother, yeah. My mother wanted me to, she said, Sonny, I think you should retire when you're 34. I don't know why she didn't say 35, but she's 34. I said, why? She said, well, you started so early, and that's, you're 4.5, and you worked so many years, and it's about time. But she's such a wonderful woman. My goodness gracious, she had these cute ideas, and I said, well, I'm afraid it isn't going to be possible. So that was all there was of that.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Well, I'm not going to ask you a question. The question I'm not going to ask you is who was your favorite dancing partner? Because you're not going to give me an answer to that, are you?
Well, I can't because I've always said my favorite dancing partner is Bing Crosby. That gets me out.
Why is it though? I mean, Gene Kelly's exactly the same. You won't talk about your dancing partners. Why is that?
Well, it's difficult because the gals are all so good, and you just don't want to say, gee whiz, I like that one better than the other one. And it isn't, we didn't, he had the same viewpoint as I just couldn't do it properly. I mean, each one had something special. And to say which is the best, I said, well, I really don't know, some are more effective than others and all that.
Yes.
When it comes to actual dancing, there's certain ways and styles and techniques that do show. I could go listing a whole lot of names, but I don't want to get any priorities in here because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings about it.
But did your attitude as a perfectionist, this warrior that you've admitted yourself being...
Excuse me, I must say Ginger was certainly one, the most effective partner I had. Everybody knows that. It was a whole other thing, what we did. I can't say that. I just want to pay tribute to Ginger because we did so many pictures together, and believe me, it was a value to have that gal. Woo! She had it. She was just great.
Yeah, there were all sorts of rumors about you and Ginger, weren't there, in Hollywood?
That we were fighting, huh?
Yes, that you were fighting. Yes.
Listen, that was the biggest nonsense ever. You told me, we were talking before, you told me there was somebody who said that there was a 25-year war
between you and your dancing
partners.
Yes.
Ridiculous. Absolutely nothing like. Ginger and I never had any fight. I never had any. When Ginger kicked me down the stairs, I loved it. I really did. I said, please do that again. And then she was just the same way. She could hardly hardly wait for me to kick her in the ankle, No, actually, seriously, we never had a fight, Ginger. Never. There were questionable conversations about material and say, well, I don't like it, or I do like it, well, I think we shouldn't, or we don't. Oh, yes and no. But you don't fight. I can't fight with the people I work with. I just couldn't do it. And it didn't happen, but the press liked it that way, so we laughed about it.
Well, let's talk about one partner that, in fact, you can talk about without hurting his or her feelings, because it happens to be a hat rack, which you used in a film called Royal Wedding, didn't you?
Right.
Yeah. Let's have a look at that clip first of all, then we'll talk about it in a minute. It's a sequence, as I say, from a film called Royal Wedding, and it's you in a gymnasium, and you start doing all kinds of weird things with the equipment there. When you watch that play back there, do you remember actually making it?
Well, a lot of it I really did.
Really?
I didn't. Because I saw it earlier today, as you remember,
yes.
and I remarked about, I really was surprised about probably at least a third of it. At least a third of it. I knew that there were things happened in the gymnasium because that was a part of the plot of the thing. I went up there to, I don't know what it was about, but I was there to exercise, so I pick up this hat rack as making believe it's the girl and dancing her around. But I didn't remember some of the stuff. It makes me laugh when I see it. I don't remember kicking that punching bag. That made me laugh. All of a sudden, that's just silly looking.
When you used yes, it would have been easier to have gone like that, actually.
Nuts. But see, everything happens when you get something, an idea working, and there's all this stuff around. I remember one thing. I don't want to go on with this too long if you're...
Carry on.
But I know in the gymnasium, the scene, there wasn't enough stuff to get, so I said, well, get me some of those things, and then get me that horse, and we'd get something for that. And so we worked until we got enough that I thought would be, to make a lot of number out of it, you see. So, but you start off with one idea, and then if it gets going, you get a lot of things.
Well, one thing, of course, there you didn't have a problem with. I mean, you couldn't possibly have a problem with a partner like that. One problem you didn't have there that you must often have had with lady partners were the sort of problem of what they wore. Because we'll see you dancing around with girls in incredible creations. It must have been difficult at times.
Well, sometimes they had things that just wouldn't work. There'd be a whole lot of dress, and you couldn't see the feet or anything, and I'd step on the thing and tear it or something, and we'd find that out before we started shooting. You'd find out at the dress rehearsal or at a costume fitting or something. You always would ask me to come and see it and see if it worked, and then I'd say, oh, no, sorry, baby, you got to do something, and then they're always very wanting to do what would work, too, because they realize it. But one or two things that happened were funny, and with Ginger, she had a dress on with very heavy beaded sleeves. They were way down here, and they were waving around. And it was a long dress with beads all over. It weighed a ton, this stuff. And I was doing this dance with her and getting it done, and she was spinning around. And the very first take, this thing hit me across here, and I honestly didn't remember anything else about what it. We just kept dancing until the thing was over, and I kept saying, "Oh, boy, I would have to finish it now because nobody has said cut." The director didn't say cut. He didn't say it because it happened probably just in back where he was turning around. But anyway, I was groggy from this thing, partly anyway. And then we finished that whole thing, and they wanted to take another for protection, and then I think we took about 10 or 12 takes of this difficult dance. I think it was called Let's Face the Music and Dance. And we decided to stop working because we were too tired and come in the next day after doing all these other takes. And believe me, we really wore ourselves out. We went to look at the rushes. They got some quick rushes to see it on the film. And the first take was the one we used in the picture.
That's always the case, isn't it?
The first one. And I, good gracious. I didn't know, and I couldn't even see where I got hit. You see.
Yeah.
That's kind of, and then there was a feather thing with Ginger, which became kind of a legend around. She had a feather dress that, like a snowstorm, it took off when it was in cheek to cheek, and there were feathers in this thing. And then she, take after take, the screen was full of feathers, and it was like snowing, and then we'd have to stop, sweep up the feathers, and finally, when she molted enough, we were able to go on with the dance, and it was fine. No, but then, because some people made that was a fight. It was no fight. We were roaring with laughter about it.